Hello everyone, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 1st of April. Well, I hope none of you have been pranked this year, being Saturday the 1st of April, of course April Fool's Day. I'm afraid I'm old enough to remember the Tomorrow's World April Fool back in the 80s, where they managed to convince most of Britain that spaghetti grew to 30 feet on a spaghetti tree, and they employed people to get a ruler and measure the exact length of the spaghetti and then posted it into packets. Admittedly, I was under the age of 10 at the time and it seemed entirely feasible. This week has been very busy. We have attended Liz Earle on 2 occasions. Liz Earle, as an employer, is keen to encourage their staff to volunteer, and therefore each member of their staff gets 4 days off a year in order to volunteer for a charity. So we went along to give our speech, set up our stand and talk people into volunteering for us. We seem to have had a great response and we look forward to welcoming some new volunteers. The weather seems relentless at the moment. It seems to be raining every day. The stride this week, as I record this, hasn't yet gone, but it's going to be a very wet and windy one. Please, everybody, stay safe and go to the garden and look for those Easter eggs. You never know what the Easter Bunny may have left behind. Thank you. Lisa, CEO, Site for Wight.
This is Chris in Jersey, reading an article from the Island Echo. Date for 2023 Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day announced. This year, Armed Forces Day is to be held at the beachside location of Eastern Gardens in Ryde on Sunday the 25th of June 2023. One day after National Armed Forces Day, the Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day is a chance to show your support for the men and women who make up the armed forces community, from currently serving troops to service families, veterans and cadets. Ian Dorr, Armed Forces Champion and AFD Committee Chair, has said, "We've been working on this for some time, and this year's event is going to put the island firmly back on the Armed Forces Day map. Details of who and what will be released over the next few months, but I urge you to put a massive X in your diary for the date. Without shadow of a doubt, it is shaping up to be one of the essential events on the island this summer." Showing support for the armed forces provides a much valued morale boost for the troops and their families. The location itself provides the perfect opportunity to display land, sea and air assets, along with all you'd expect at an Armed Forces Day, at one of the most idyllic parts of the island. Ian goes on to add, the website is live at isleofwightarmedforcesday.co.uk, so bookmark it for all the latest updates. We've also got a Facebook page too. Over the coming weeks and months, the details will be firmed up on how you can get involved, what the day consists of, and much more. For now, block out the date for Sunday the 25th of June. It's going to be a belter.
This is Brian in Jersey, reading an article from the Island Echo. Local businesses finally make their move to Branston Farm. Several island businesses have begun their move into new premises on the Branston Farm Integrated Regeneration Development site, some 6 months after they were meant to move in. Branston Farm offers environmentally sustainable, fit-for-purpose business units, boasting air source heat pumps, high-specification energy efficiency, super-fast full-fibre broadband, and stunning ecological surroundings. Features that help new tenants feel enabled by the new opportunities for their businesses to flourish. It is an example of bringing the principles of the island's UNESCO biosphere status to life. Goddard's Brewery, the oldest brewery on the Isle of Wight and one of the first independent craft beer producers in the UK, is growing and creating 15 to 20 jobs for local people that will add to the island economy as they plan their move to Branston Farm for Easter. The emphasis will also be on supporting other local businesses in their restaurant and shop. Matt Jeffrey, CEO of creative agency Bright Bulb Design, says, "Our business is expanding and we need suitable, high-quality office space to meet our needs and the growing team. The move is not just about square footage, but is about providing an encouraging environment to ensure we meet our values of positive well-being at work for the team." Christopher Scott, a planning and land development consultant on the Isle of Wight, who is also making the choice to move his business to Branston Farm, says, "For us, moving to Branston is about walking the talk. I've been privileged to work on many innovative schemes involving ecological, biodiverse and sustainable living and working across the island. Moving to Branston is about right place, right time, right reason, and being true to our purpose. It means our clients can see what we do, what we say." Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, Cabinet Member for Levelling Up, Regeneration, Business Development and Tourism, said, "Another milestone had been reached in this project, with companies moving in and taking their businesses to the next level. Creating a community here at Branston will enable island businesses to go from strength to strength."
Hello, this is an article from the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Sue. Isle of Wight Council nationally recognised as age-friendly. 3 years ago, the Isle of Wight Council signed the Age-Friendly Charter, a commitment to creating an environment where older people can live safely, enjoy good health and stay locally involved. This year, the council has been nationally recognised as an age-friendly employer through its work to embrace age and support its workforce. This was highlighted at a recent age-friendly island best practice event where Sharon Betts, co-director of corporate services, spoke about how the council had embraced the local initiative. The council has pledged to ensure that its buildings are accessible. Digital services are built around customer needs. Frontline staff receive age-friendly training. Older people are valued for their contributions in supporting the authority to help people stay healthy, active, and live with dignity and enjoyment in later life. Employment practices recognise the needs of older employees and promote flexible working. Sharon said, "As an employer, our employment offer supports flexible working around people's personal needs, including reduced hours. We also offer agile working arrangements for people to work where they need to, as well as part-time contracts. But our support of the Age-Friendly Island initiative doesn't stop there. In recent years, we've also rolled out a number of initiatives across the council and with our partners to support our older communities. Age-friendly training has been well attended across the council, with feedback from colleagues about how it has helped them to understand the needs of older people far more than they did before. The council also has a team of age-friendly champions who support their colleagues when planning and implementing changes to ensure that full consideration is given to older people to access our services effectively.
More places on the island could be offered water butts by Southern Water from the Island Echo, read by Lee. Southern Water is boosting its commitment to drive down the use of storm overflows on the Isle of Wight by expanding its nature-based engineering solutions, following investment of £5 million in pilot schemes proven to help reduce and slow the flow of surface and water and sewage spills. Southern Water is providing slow drain water butts to over 1,000 more houses on the island. The water company will also be replumbing sewers where old piping is no longer fit for purpose or has been connected wrongly to the network. This step forward on the Isle of Wight is part of our journey to drastically cut storm overflows across the Southern Water region by 2030. It comes after a hugely successful pilot in Haven Street, where we trialled the use of slow draining water butts. 2/3 of customers took up the offer of a free installation, resulting in a 70% reduction in spills from the nearby storm overflow site by controlling the amount of surface water reaching the ground at any one time. Lawrence Gosden, Southern Water CEO, said reducing the use of storm overflows and their impact on water quality is a priority for me. If we are to significantly reduce their use, we need to get to the heart of the issue and reduce the amount of surface water entering the system. Following investment of £5 million in our effective catchment-based solutions, which have proven to help reduce and slow the flow of surface water and sewage spills by harnessing nature, we are providing the slow drain water butts to over 1,000 more houses on the Isle of Wight and working to secure funding to scale the rollout of these solutions further. Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley has worked closely with Southern Water on the island's trials so far, and he has said Southern Water, along with other water firms, know that they need to raise their game. As a swimmer and an occasional sea swimmer, I share the anger at the pollution in our rivers and seas. A year ago, I approached Southern Water with the idea that they make the island a leading example of national best practices to improve environmental standards. They agreed. Change will not happen overnight, and we need to remember that the majority of pollutants come from agricultural runoff and not sewage from storm overflow. But there is going to be a sea change in the coming years in improving the quality of rivers and beaches and the beneficial impact it will have on wildlife and humans. I am delighted that the Isle of Wight is at the forefront of the change, all part of getting a better deal for the island. I am speaking with Southern Water every month to ensure that the change will be delivered.
This is Chris in Jersey reading an article from the Island Echo. Phone users to get emergency alert during nationwide test next month. A siren-like emergency warning message will be sent by the government to mobile phone users across the Isle of Wight next month to test a new public alert system. The 10-second long pop-up, which is due to be sent out across the country on Sunday the 23rd of April, will cause phones to be redundant until the alert has been acknowledged. The system will follow similar models to the ones used in places like the United States, Canada and Japan, and is intended to alert members of the public to life-threatening situations and emergencies such as floods, fires, and even things like earthquakes and tsunamis. Those who don't wish to take part in the trial can opt out in their device settings should they wish to. Whilst alerts will only ever be sent by the government and emergency services, the Cabinet Office has stressed that the alerts are secure and free to receive and that they don't reveal anyone's location. Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Oliver Dowden, said, "We are strengthening our national resilience with a new emergency alerts system to deal with a wide range of threats, from flooding to wildfires. It will revolutionise our ability to warn and inform people who are in immediate danger and help us to keep people safe. As we've seen in the US and elsewhere, the buzz of a phone can save a life."
This is Brian in Jersey reading an article from the Island Echo. Wight Link celebrates the return of later fast cats with special offers at Gunwharf Quays. Wight Link has teamed up with Gunwharf Quays Designer Outlet to offer savings for Isle of Wight residents and highlight the later fast cat sailings between Ryde Pier and Portsmouth Harbour. These later sailings, starting Monday 27th of March 2023, will be 21:20 and 22:45 from Portsmouth and 2200 and 23:10 from Ryde. Crossings will also run hourly throughout the day, Monday to Sunday, as part of Whitelink's summer timetable. These are the new offers for islanders travelling with Whitelink. Fastcat and ferry customers can enjoy 23 miles of views across the South Coast from the Spinnaker Tower's panoramic viewing platforms, with 30% off their entrance ticket. Savings are also available on meals at the Alchemist Cocktail Bar and Restaurant in Gunwharf Quays. Whitelink customers can get 20% off their dining bill for tables of up to 6 people. Islanders can shop till they drop at Gunwharf Quays, then relax while sightseeing or enjoying their meal without having to carry their bags around. The Drop It home delivery service would usually cost £10.50 but is free to Whitelink customers. Foot passengers can also take advantage of these offers using Whitelink's car ferries. The 22:15 and 23:59 crossings from Portsmouth to Fishbourne, returning at 2300 and 1 a.m, complement the scheduled Fastcats to offer extra sailings to and from the Isle of Wight. Whitelink Chief Executive Keith Greenfield says, "We hope islanders will take advantage of this opportunity to cross the Solent later in the evening and snap up these bargain offers we have negotiated for our customers." Yvonne Clay, Centre Director at Gunwharf Quays, adds, "We're delighted to offer our shopping bags to home for free to islanders. Whitelink customers can enjoy all the excellent shopping and leisure activities, then travel home unhindered and in extra comfort, knowing that their shopping will be arriving at their address soon after they do."
Hello, this is an article from the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Sue. RSPCA Isle of Wight seeking volunteers to make a difference protecting wildlife. The RSPCA is asking for the Isle of Wight volunteers to come forward to help make a difference. Volunteers help the RSPCA collect, transport and release nearly 2,400 wild animals last year. And now the charity wants people to give a little bit of time this summer to do their bit for wildlife as part of the big help out. The huge contribution made by the animal charities rescue volunteers is highlighted as the RSPCA is urging people to sign up as a wildlife friend and join thousands of others making a difference as part of the big help out on May the 8th. It marks a mass volunteering initiative to mark King Charles III's coronation celebrations. Now the RSPCA wants more animal lovers to take action for wildlife and follow in the footsteps of our animal rescue volunteers. By becoming wildlife friends, they can make a pledge to volunteer their time on the 8th of May and beyond to complete small tasks to support, nurture and protect the wildlife with which they share their communities, with even small contributions potentially making a big difference. Wildlife Friends includes a choice of simple ideas to help wildlife on the doorstep, either on your own or as part of your family or group or friends, or even the wider community. For example, volunteers could organise a litter pick, plant wildlife-friendly plants in gardens and window boxes, build nest boxes for wild animals, put food out for hedgehogs or create a hedgehog highway, get together with their neighbours to start a wildlife project, join No Mow May and make a habitat for butterflies, bees and insects in gardens, recreate wildlife-friendly ideas from RHS Chelsea, join online social media groups and signpost RSPCA advice about wildlife. RSPCA Head of Volunteering Brian Reeves said, "We have some 10,000 volunteers, including a network of about 140 branches across England and Wales, which help tens of thousands of animals every single year. That work is made possible thanks to people who care generously by giving up their time to make a kinder world. They all make a huge difference for wild animals and their welfare, and we're hoping even more amazing volunteers join us as part of the big help out. Join the RSPCA's Vice President, Steve Backshaw, on May the 8th for the big help out by signing up to be a wildlife friend at www.rspca.org.uk/the big help out.
NatWest announces Ryde branch to permanently close in August, from the Island Echo, read by Lee. NatWest has announced a permanent closure of its Ryde branch, which will leave another empty building in the heart of the town centre come August. The move leaves Island customers with just one remaining NatWest branch, following previous closures of branches in Sandown and Ventnor in 2011, Cowes and Freshwater in 2015 and Shanklin in 2017. It's a fresh blow to the residents and businesses of Ryde, following recent announcements by both Barclays and HSBC within the last 12 months that they would also close their own respective branches in the town. All three banks will now have a solitary branch in Newport as their only presence on the island. NatWest has produced an information leaflet which is available in branch and which explains the rationale behind the decision. It said that comparing January 2019 and January 22, counter transactions for personal customers have decreased by 64%. The branch was used by 5 personal customers and 101 business customers on a regular basis in 2021, it claimed. No public announcement has yet been made on the future of the branch's staff, but Island Echo understands that they only learnt of the impending closure when they arrived for work this morning, Wednesday. The future of the building itself is unclear, with fears that it might join the growing list of empty commercial properties on the island. NatWest Ryde occupies a large and prominent location in the town, on land where the Theatre Royal once stood.
This is Chris in Jersey reading an article from the Island Echo. Shorewell Midsummer Fair heads to historic new venue for 2023. For the first time in 60 years, Shorewell Midsummer Fair will be held at Wolverton Manor when the event returns on the 24th of June. After 6 decades of being held at North Court House, the new venue is an equally historic Jacobean manor built by Sir John Dingley, a physician for King James I in the 1600s. Interestingly, his nephew was the governor of Carisbrooke Castle, who handed James's son, King Charles I, over to the parliamentarians before he was ultimately executed. Speaking after the move was announced, Secretary Ben Lambert said, "The committee would like to thank Christine and John Harrison for allowing the previous events at North Court. Their support, generosity and hard work will never be forgotten." He added, "The fair will continue in raising as much money as possible, with all proceeds being donated to organisations in and around the local community. We look forward to welcoming both returning and new visitors in supporting the next adventure of this great local event. This year's fair will take place on Saturday, the 24th of June, between 1300 and 1700 hours.
This is Brian in Jersey reading an article from the Island Echo. Ambulance response times too long, say Isle of Wight NHS Trust after recent death. Long waiting times for ambulances on the Isle of Wight has led to the recent death of a resident, it has been revealed. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust has said it is investigating the incident. It came to light in a report to the Trust Board this month as the health body continues to struggle with ambulance capacity issues. The Trust has said demand for ambulance services is currently exceeding its available capacity and has led to it failing to meet national response time targets. In January, ambulance responses to Category 1 life-threatening calls averaged 9 minutes and 25 seconds. The target is 7 minutes. Responses to Category 2 emergency calls were 28 minutes and 31 seconds. The target is 18 minutes. These times are the lowest they've been in 4 months, but the demand is still causing the ambulance service to struggle, and the Trust is currently investigating a death associated with a long wait for an ambulance. In December, the Category 2 response times hit a high with an average of 39 minutes and 45 seconds, which is double what it should be. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust has apologised to anyone who has been affected by the service pressures. A Trust spokesperson said, "We want to assure islanders we're doing everything we can to continue to improve." The Trust has said it invested in additional ambulances and recruited to ensure it can keep as many crews on the road as possible. The increased capacity, it said, helped significantly, improving response time from some of the worst in the country in 2020 to among the best this year. In the last 12 months, the Trust has received more than 28,500 calls and a 25% increase in ambulance call-outs on the island over the past 3 years. Surges still remain the service's biggest challenge, the Trust revealed, as it responds to an average of 86 call-outs a day, but during busy periods this can rise to 115 or more. The Trust recognised, despite the improvement, there is still more to do. Recently, the Trust has introduced a rapid response vehicle and deployed ambulance community first responders as well as fire and rescue volunteer responders, acting as an alternative to dispatching an ambulance.
This is an article from the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Sue. Red Funnel and Wight Link announce high-profile appointments. 2 Isle of Wight travel companies have completed the high-profile appointments this week. Red Funnel has appointed Lee Howes as its new sustainability officer as part of the push towards a greener future for the cross-Solent ferry operator. Lee's role is focused on developing, implementing and delivering a holistic environmental, social and governance strategy for Red Funnel, which will be at the forefront of operations. Lee said, "It is an exciting time to be joining Red Funnel as we work hard to develop and implement our renewed ESG strategy. The business is at a pivotal moment and it's great to be part of the team setting the scene for the future. I am looking forward to working with the team and putting my experience and skill set into action." Fran Collins, Chief Executive Officer at Red Funnel, added, "Lee is a dynamic and values-driven business leader who will be a real asset to the Red Funnel team. His appointment will help drive our ESG strategy and chart our course to net zero." Wight Link welcomes Dan Haynes as Head of Retail. Dan Haynes has joined Wight Link Ferries as Head of Retail. He is responsible for the 14 cafes and shops on board ferries and at ports throughout the company with more than 80 members of staff. Dan worked with Southern Co-op for 13 years, most recently as an area manager with responsibility for stores along the south coast and on the Isle of Wight. "I share Wight Link's passion for buying locally," says Dan. "Feedback from our customers shows they appreciate supporting local businesses and the quality of island produce is second to none. We are proud to sell products from many excellent Isle of Wight companies and are working with them so they can grow their businesses with us and delight more customers."
New £765,000 council website to finally go live on Monday from the Island Echo, read by Lee. The Isle of Wight Council's website will soon look very different as a beta website that has been in testing for the past year goes live as a local authority's new main website. From Monday the 3rd of April, visitors will be able to access all the council's web pages on a single site as a beta version is migrated onto iow.gov.uk. Unfortunately, the switchover from the older website will mean some disruption to online services, including online payments and waste requests, throughout tomorrow, Thursday. The work is scheduled to take place from 6 a.m. to midnight tomorrow and will require downtime of both websites. Service delivery will be restored as soon as possible. As previously reported by the Island Echo, the new website comes at a cost of £765,000, and it was initially hoped that the beta website would be launched in September 2020, but was beset by delays until May 2022. The new website will offer improved features and functionality, and the Council hopes to achieve a website that works on all devices and responsive to user needs.
Hello, this is Francis.
And this is Terry.
Before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's Society's News, 31st of March 2023. There is no swimming this week, as Medina Pool is due to school holidays, but it will resume on the 17th of April.
Godshill Coffee Morning is cancelled this month, but will be back on the 2nd of May and will be attended by a staff member from Site for Wight. It starts at 10:30, so please put it in your diary. There is yoga this Tuesday at Millbrook between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. The cost is £3 to include refreshments.
Coffee and chat will be on Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. here at Millbrook House. Please come along and chat with members, friends and staff. This week, Laura Goulgar, the Island ACLO officer, will be joining us. Just a reminder that there is no mix and mingle on Thursday, but it will resume next week as usual.
Advance notice of our King's coronation party on Thursday, May the 4th at the Wendy's Hall, St John's Road, Newport, between 2 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. Afternoon tea will be served along with entertainment. The cost is £5. Once again, this is open to all members, volunteers, family and friends. Numbers are limited. Further details will follow.
You have one more week to purchase our wonderful Easter chicks and bunnies that are now available from Millbrook House. We are asking a donation of £2, which includes a chocolate egg. If you would like one or two for family and friends, please do not hesitate to call the office.
This is an advance notice for your diary that our catch-up and feedback for our members is on the 12th of April at 11:45. Please come along and support. This is an opportunity to give us feedback on the services we provide and any suggestions you may have. If you are unable to make it to Millbrook House, please call us with any ideas that we can take to the meeting.
We wish you all a happy Easter, and to let you know that the Talking News next week will be produced on Thursday and therefore will be short of news articles, but as always our wonderful volunteers will try their best. For any information on the activities or events mentioned, please do not hesitate to call the office on 522205.
An island school fixes its failings. An unannounced visit by the Independent Schools Inspectorate found Ryde School compliant in all areas. The ISI dropped in for an unannounced monitoring visit last month, February. It came after the Queen's Road private school was earlier told it must submit an improvement plan to the Secretary of State for Education, following the ISA's discovery of a series of failings during the inspection in May 2022. When the county press originally reported the story, the Independent Day and Boarding School said it had already taken action to address the failings, shortcomings in early years education, as well as among older pupils. Improvements were required in leadership and the management, as well as in the way the school supported pupils' spiritual, moral, social and cultural development. The welfare and health and safety of pupils had sparked concern, including among those who board. The school was required to answer concerns about the recruitment of some of its staff, and inspectors found the school had failed to protect some pupils from discrimination and to provide individual level care.
All change for a Parkdean Resorts holiday park. An Isle of Wight holiday park is looking to sell alcohol later, play live music longer and stay open until the early hours. Parkdean Resorts has applied to the Isle of Wight Council to vary its premises licence for Langard Holiday Park in Shanklin. If approved, it could mean alcohol bought at the site could be consumed off the premises 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to midnight. At the moment, alcohol can only be sold if consumed on site. In its application, the National Holiday Park operator, which has 4 sites on the island, is also looking to amend how early alcohol can be sold. It wants to bring forward the time plays, dance performances and live music indoors can start from 10 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week. It is also asking for the holiday park to stay open half an hour later every day, opening to the public between 10 a.m. and 12:30 a.m. the following day. Parkdean is also proposing it be able to serve food and drink until midnight, Monday to Sunday. Anyone wishing to make a comment can do so until April the 7th. They can be made by email to licensing@isleofwight.gov.uk.
Sanctuary's farewell to Jill and Angelica. The Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary announced the death of 2 of its much-loved donkeys on Monday. In consultation with the sanctuary's vet and surrounded by farm team, Jill and Angelica were helped to pass on Saturday evening. The donkeys, who had both been adopted by award-winning Isle of Wight indie rock band Wet Leg, had been closely monitored for a while, as both had various health issues that were causing concern. Jill was part of the OAP herd for many years and enjoyed meeting visitors over the time she has lived at the sanctuary. In her later years, Jill was unable to eat as well as the sanctuary's younger donkeys due to dental and internal issues. Despite her age-related stiffness, Jill would enjoy trotting around the field with the other OAPs. The team also said goodbye to its little mischief, Angelica, who may have been one of the smallest donkeys, but was one of the biggest characters on the site. Angelica enjoyed taking part in activities and regularly attended the community events, bringing smiles to all those who she met, while enjoying being the centre of attention. Affectionately known by self as Jellybean, Angelica passed peacefully, surrounded by her small herd of friends, Bella, Wizzy and Geraldine.
Retreat plans are blasted. Major plans to change former wedding venue and children's activity centre into a boutique well-being retreat have been slammed. Historic England says the East Dean proposal has the potential to cause serious harm. It has made the Bond Church grounds, developed in the 1830s and described as remarkably intact, as well as its parks and gardens, Grade 2 listed. The 1824 built house itself is Grade 2 listed. The removal of old built-in bookshelves and the library's fireplace to create an ensuite bathroom are among internal work with the potential to cause low-level harm, it is claimed. The body says planning documents downplay the impact of the proposals. Wonder Wellbeing wants to turn the Tudor Gothic-style house into a 20-bed hotel with proposed swimming pool and spa, which Historic England objects to. A gym pavilion and 16 holiday eco-lodges in the grounds are also planned. Historic England said the tranquil and meandering woodlands would be spoiled by the construction of the proposed lodges, which would be highly visible from the coastal footpaths.
Safety concerns have closed steps down to a popular Isle of Wight beach, making it only accessible by pay-to-use chairlift. As the Easter holidays approaches, the Isle of Wight Council has been unable to start work as the land has not stabilised on the pathway down to Alum Bay, which has the island's iconic multicoloured sands. It means the public right of access could be closed until the end of spring. The walkway from the Needles landmark attraction to Alum Bay was closed last week, as one set of steps and a landing close to the beach had dropped and have been insufficient support underneath. Following an inspection, the Isle of Wight Council has said that the last steps to the beach will be strengthened and straightened, as well as a realignment of the flight, leading and walkway. A council spokesman said it is regrettable the steps to Alum Bay have been closed, but the safety of the public has to be our priority. After the formal path was lost, the council maintained public access to the beach and spent £40,000 to keep it open since 2017. The authority said the walkway to the beach is under constant threat of damage during winter due to adverse weather conditions and coastal erosion. The current repair costs are being assessed. A council spokesperson said, "We will be liaising with local businesses to reopen the path and steps, and while not ideal, subject to agreeing costs and securing funding, we will do our best to have the steps open as soon as possible." The public notice from the council warns there is no alternative route to the beach during the closure, and no one should use the steps due to the likelihood of danger. To get to the beach, it can only be accessed by the Needles chairlift, which costs a minimum of £4 for an adult and £2 for a child to use one way. The Needles landmark attraction spokesperson said, "We remain fully open to visitors, including our chairlift, which provides guests with access to Alum Bay, and we hope to see these steps opened as soon as possible to provide guests and pedestrians with an alternative access route to Alum Bay." Around the coast, the Isle of Wight Council is working to reinstate beach access at Brambles Chine, and with final phase starting earlier this year.
Childcare dilemma for the Isle of Wight Council. The Isle of Wight Council insists there are enough childcare places, despite what parents say. It has been revealed the council thought there would be less of a requirement for statutory childcare on the island following the COVID-19 pandemic due to an increase in working from home. A survey of parents found the opposite. need actually increased and more out-of-school provision was required. However, a childcare report has also found the island's under-15 population is decreasing, so careful market management will be needed in the coming years. In the latest census data, since 2011, there has been a 13% drop in the number of under 5-year-olds. In December 2022, there were 2,528 early year childcare places on the island, 111 fewer than in 2019. According to an early years childcare sufficiency report, the childcare market has continued to recover from COVID-19, but there are increased challenges over financial sustainability due to the cost of living crisis. Providers say there is an issue recruiting and retaining experienced qualified staff. Gaps are being filled by less experienced practitioners. A childcare sufficiency assessment action plan has been created, and its aim is to develop out-of-school childcare by this summer.
Goodbye. It's been a fabulous time, by Alan Marriott. In July 1964, I arrived on the Isle of Wight as a fresh-faced lad to take up a position as County Press sports editor, a long way from my native Chester, and with high hopes of a sporting journalism career at the highest level. But I came to love the island very quickly. Priorities changed, and marriage and a family followed. Now, 39 years later, I am this week handing over the reins of editorship to my trusted colleagues Laurie Little and Lucy Morgan. I know they will keep the County Press at the top of its game. People ask me what are my favourite memories, but it would take pages and pages to recount them all. There have been thousands of great stories written by the many talented journalists I have worked with. There's long been laughter and tears along the way, and there's always been the sense that I had a huge responsibility to hold those in power to account. The trolls on social media accuse the County Press of being everything from Pravda to the Daily Mail, with all the political leanings these things entail. But those are not the real people of the island. The opinions of the County Press and that matter are those of the people who don't hide behind the internet curtains, but instead tell you to your face what they think. I recall 20-odd years ago being shouted at by a woman who blasted, "Your arrogance will get you into trouble, young man," at me. And she was right. I've learned to listen and to encourage all my team to do the same. One highlight was the Flight for Wight campaign, which saw us deliver 10,000 signatories to Downing Street, demanding a better deal for the island. The jury is still out on that one. As for the fun things of the job, interviewing musical heroes and chatting to sports stars is great, but I've had the best of times asked to open new changing rooms at Brading Football Club and been lucky enough to assist the good folk of the Wight, such as Rachel Thompson, now of Pan Together, and Karen Eads, who has helped so many good causes. I'm going to miss it terribly. I know I will, but I'm not departing the island life, and I'm sure many of you will see me popping up in various positions in the months and years to come.
Death after sea incident. A man died after being pulled from the water in Ventnor last Friday afternoon. At approximately 1 p.m, police were called to Ventnor Esplanade near the Rotunda bandstand. They were responding to concerns for the welfare of a man who was in difficulty in the water. Despite the efforts of emergency services, a man in his 40s was pronounced dead, said a spokesperson for the force. His next of kin have been made aware. The death is not being treated as suspicious, and a file will be prepared for the coroner. Among those in attendance were Ventnor and Bembridge Coast Guard rescue teams, Bembridge RNLI, the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service, and the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance.
Proposal for more housing. Yet more houses could be built in Ryde as an application goes back before planners a year after it was refused. An area of land which is neighbours West Street Garage, St John's Graveyard and the proposed site for Pennyfeathers, the Major 904 home plan, is earmarked for development. It has been proposed to fill the gap between developments on a bit of grassland off Preston Road, submitted to the Isle of Wight Council by Roach Pittis solicitors. As previous application was refused by the County Planning Authority in March of last year, failed to provide a balanced mix of housing to meet local need. The development would have appeared cramped development and overly regimented, planners said, failing to reflect the more varied, spacious character of houses in the area. According to the planning agents, Nova Architectural, the application has been revised to address all the reasons for refusal, changing the housing types, their appearances, the site layout and access. The property mix will now feature three three-bed detached houses, two two-bed semi-detached houses and a two-bed bungalow.
A boat caught fire in the River Medina near the Folly Inn and sunk. The area was put under protection from pollution as a precaution. When firefighters, Coast Guard and lifeboat teams arrived last Friday afternoon, the boat was well alight on an offshore pontoon with flammables on board, which led to safety fears. A spokesperson for Cowes Harbour Commission said Cowes Harbour Master is continuing to work with the owners of the wrecked vessel. The unoccupied vessel was lost to fire while moored on a Newport Harbour River pontoon just south of the Folly Inn. Nobody was aboard the boat at the time, and there have been no reported injuries. The boat is currently sitting on the bottom of the River Medina, while salvage is being arranged. As a precaution, the area is being protected with specialist equipment to contain any pollution, although no spillage has been detected. The source of ignition causing the total loss of the boat has not been identified. The Harbour Commission said there was very little damage to the pontoon and no damage caused to adjacent moored vessels.
Care worker sentencing. An Isle of Wight care worker who ill-treated or willfully neglected the person he was supposed to care for is due to be sentenced later this year. Dean Tompkins of Broadway Sandown appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on Monday. The 39-year-old admitted ill-treatment by a care worker on June the 14th of last year. An all-options pre-sentence report was ordered, with the caveat that it will only be prepared if the basis of plea is accepted by the Crown. Mr Tompkins saw his case adjourned to May 25th.
Lifeline service set to close. After nearly 20 years, the Isle of Wight Law Centre has made the difficult decision to permanently close. A lack of funding has left trustees with no other option, and current clients have been made aware of this situation for some time, it said. The centre, which offers free legal advice, support and representation, only survived closure in August last year after the Isle of Wight Council provided a last-minute cash injection. However, 7 months on, that funding has ceased, and the centre claims there is no other money available from any sources to support it going forward. A spokesperson said, "The local community will feel the law centre's loss bitterly. It has been a lifeline and a beacon of support for vulnerable local people facing difficult circumstances, and many will now struggle without ongoing support. We would like to thank our amazing team at the Law Centre for always acting with professionalism, enthusiasm and dedication, and for having a genuine compassion for the needs of their clients. Law centres work within their communities to offer legal advice, casework and representation to individuals and groups. The Isle of Wight Law Centre will close on Friday, March the 31st. The County Press has asked the Isle of Wight Council for a comment.
A Rogue Trader Behind Bars by Liam Chorley. The conviction of fraudster Simon Regan represents one of the biggest trading standards prosecution ever brought by the Isle of Wight Council. The rogue trader of Bradfield Road, Barrows Green, Crewe, appeared before a judge at Southampton Crown Court on Thursday. He was jailed for 3 years and banned from being a company director for 6. The 58-year-old was in the business of laying resin drives and pathways and charged residents and businesses across 3 counties many thousands of pounds for work which in many cases was not up to scratch. People trying to get faults put right were met with repeated false promises. He would simply lie to customers and make countless excuses and evade his responsibilities. James Potter, the Council's Trading Standards Manager, said, "This was a long and complex investigation with many lines of inquiry we had to follow. Some of the things Simon Regan said and excuses he made to his customers were bullying and simply staggering. We are pleased the court has found him guilty of his offending." During the trial, the court heard evidence from 65 witnesses from the Isle of Wight, Hampshire and Devon, where Regan's companies had committed offences. The collective fraud of these contracts was valued at £300,000. His offending included gross overcharging, works that were poorly and incompletely installed, 10-year guarantees that were worthless or had little value, remedial works that were only partially undertaken or not undertaken at all, and the non-return of deposits paid when cancelled rights had been exercised. Witnesses told the court Regan would make threats to rip up the driveways if he didn't receive payment in full, and when civil action was attempted in the county court, he would threaten consumers again. During the case, the jury heard how Regan would simply fob off his customers and lied to trading standards during the investigation.
Doris goes viral across the pond. A cow called Doris from Cowbourne is moving TV viewers in the United States of America. The famous Frisian who lives at Reed's Farm has become an unlikely TikTok sensation in the last week, even appearing on CNN. Owned by Mark Reed, the farm is home to 200 dairy cows, but of them all, Doris is the favourite. "We don't tell the other cows," employee John Brodie said, "but Doris is a great character." Doris's social media stardom began when John sent his wife, Laura, a video from work as he tried to encourage the herd out of their barn. Doris, he says, was having none of it and appeared to be pretending to be asleep. John said she took one look at me and put her head down so she didn't have to get up. I started videoing because I knew she was messing me about. She's prone to a lot of characterful things. She's cheeky and she likes the attention. In the video, John can be heard saying, "Everyone's out getting ready, milking, except for Doris. Doris, come on, I can see your ears moving." Laura shared John's video via her TikTok account and it went viral before being spotted by online media organisation Newsweek. CNN picked up the story, and since then John and Laura have been getting messages from as far afield as Texas, Montana, Maine and Illinois, all of whom saw Doris on the news. Audio of the viral TikTok clip also ended up on the BBC's Radio 1 breakfast show. John works full-time at Mark's Farm, which produces and processes Isle of Wight milk, before selling it through local shops and branches of the co-op. John said, "We take huge pride in the care and welfare of the animals, and we have many friendly cows in the herd, because they are treated well and with respect, so they treat us accordingly. Neither me nor my wife, Laura, anticipated Doris getting quite as much attention as she has. Watch this space. Doris's social media success may mean you could be about to see more of her."
Vets say sorry for home visit failure. A chronically understaffed Isle of Wight veterinary practice has apologised for being unable to provide a home visit euthanasia service, a limitation it does not like and is working tirelessly to fix. Anne Lewington's son Paul is a paraplegic single parent with an autistic son. On March the 18th, he woke to find his pet dog Aurora had fallen terribly ill. The good-natured Mastiff, crossbreed, was 13 years old and already struggling, so Paul had prepared himself for the inevitable. But when it came to get her to the vets for one final farewell, he was at a loss. He was aware of a new policy at Carisbrook Vets, which meant they were no longer making home visits, but he was unable to drive and couldn't lift the dog in any case. He hoped the vets would make an exception for him, especially given his close proximity to the site. But they could not, and Paul was stuck with a suffering animal with no means of taking her to the surgery. His son Damien was extremely distressed and unintentionally making the situation more stressful. At the end, a teacher from OEA Alternative Provision School and one of Paul's friends helped put the dog into the car while another teacher took care of Dominic, who is traumatised by what happened. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the OEA staff who helped Paul, Damien and Aurora. I should also like to ask any vet reading this to reconsider the policy of no home visits if they are considering adopting one. I really do believe any vet who refuses to come out to relieve the suffering of an animal on their books is failing in their duty of care. A spokesperson for the veterinary practice said, "We are very sorry and sad that this client feels he was let down when he needed us, and offered our sincere apologies for this. We hope to be able to provide a home visit euthanasia service in specific situations in the near future."
Cruise ship rescues stricken sailors. Dramatic footage captured by an Isle of Wight resident aboard a P&O cruise shows the moment their ship came to the rescue of stricken sailors off the coast of Mexico. A Shanklin couple were travelling on the Ventura last weekend when the incident unfolded. The resident told the county press he was first made aware something was wrong when the 947-foot-long ship was suddenly turned around after picking up a distress call. He saw 3 sailors, 1 man and 2 women, in difficulty. He said the sails, rigging and outboard engine on their yacht had failed in rough seas. The Ventura approached the boat on its port side, the islander said, and an elderly man was safely taken aboard. The yacht was secured alongside the ship, but the sail mast began to collapse after striking the side of the ship. He said there was a risk of this striking the 2 female passengers. Thankfully, both safely made it on board. He told the county press the sailors were taken straight down to the medical centre for assessment. The captain later announced that all 3 were safe and well. Shortly after the rescue, a storm hit the ship and the waters became perilous and dangerous, the holidaymaker added.
Former Islander wins a coveted Michelin award. A former Isle of Wight school student turned acclaimed chef has scooped a coveted Michelin award. Sarah Hayward, who grew up on the island, was named Young Chef of the Year at the prestigious Michelin Guide Great Britain and Ireland 2023 ceremony. Sarah is head chef at the Michelin-starred The Coach restaurant in Marlow, which is owned by celebrity cook Tom Kerridge. Upon winning the prize, Michelin described her as a tenacious, determined, yet modest young lady. Reacting to the win, Sarah took to Twitter to say, "There are no words." Sarah was born in Nottinghamshire and moved to the Isle of Wight when she was 8 years old. She attended the then Sandown High School and at the age of 16 worked a year-long apprenticeship at the Royal Hotel Ventnor. She moved off the island in 2010 and 5 years later started working for Tom Kerridge. She became head chef at his restaurant The Coach in 2021. Tom Kerridge posted on Twitter, "So proud of Sarah Hayward. Massive congratulations, mate."
Home plans submitted for B&B. A bed and breakfast in a picturesque part of the island could be turned into a home. The 7-bed Hayter Lodge on the cliff path in Lake could close if the Isle of Wight Council grants planning permission. Documents submitted to the authorities say the business is not generating a sustainable income for its owners, Mr. and Mrs. Hammant, to continue running it as they look to retire. It has been on the market for over a year, but has had no interest from any of the viewings which have taken place. Estate agent Hose Rhodes Dixon said the level of interest in the property has dropped recently and the hotel and guest house market on the island is quiet. Documents from planning agent Andrew White Planning Consultancy said the accommodation could be described as basic and all the rooms would require radical upgrading to meet modern standards. The B&B has relied, the planning agents say, on a core group of regular guests who have returned year after year. The building could be a 3 or 4 bed house. You can view the plans on the council's website. Comments can be viewed until April the 25th.
Allowance of 9k agreed by Louise Hill. Isle of Wight councillors have approved how much money they will be given as an allowance in the coming year. One councillor said he felt uncomfortable as he thought it was the biggest increase he had seen in years. The authority's full council meeting on Wednesday agreed to set its members' allowance at just under £9,000 each, but with the potential inflationary uplift. Councillors receive an allowance for the time they dedicate to their role, but it is not a salary and is often regarded as a reimbursement for losses incurred, for example, wages from other jobs. Speaking on Wednesday, Councillor Jeff Brodie said it was being presented to the council not being an increase, but it was and would likely rise later this year when a figure had been agreed nationally. Last year, members agreed to a new scheme where a sum would be added each year in line with the pay award offered to staff and reflecting the level of inflation. A basic allowance was then calculated in January 2022 at £8,232 a year. Following that decision, a 5.3% increase was added later in the year and equated to a £600 rise in the allowance. Councillor Brodie said the meeting when the increase was awarded, especially as it was backdated for a number of months, he felt uncomfortable as the authority was about to increase its budget and charge the residents more while they faced the cost of living crisis. He thought it was one of the biggest increases he had seen by members' allowances in all his years on the council. It means in 2023/24, the basic allowance will be at least £8,832 with an inflationary measure added at a later date. No agreement has been reached over the pay award yet, so there is no indication of whether there will be an increase, and if so, how much. Councillors voted in favour of the not an increase but an increase motion with 22 votes for, 8 against and 2 abstentions. Every councillor will receive the basic allowance, but if a member holds a special responsibility within the authority, they will receive more.
Accused of sex offences. A man will stand before a judge later this year accused of child sex offences. Michael Shuttleworth of Oakfield Ryde appeared before Isle of Wight magistrates on March the 14th. The 29-year-old is charged with attempting to incite a child to engage in sexual activity in Ryde on June the 10th, 2020, and attempting to engage in sexual communication with a child, and 2 counts of making indecent images of a child on May the 31st, 2020. He did not enter a plea. The case was adjourned to April the 17th.
2 hurt in serious road crash. A 35-year-old woman and a 17-year-old girl were being treated for serious injuries after a single vehicle crash near Newport on Friday, March the 24th. Both were passengers in a black Jaguar XF, which was in collision with a tree, causing the car to roll multiple times. It came to rest on its roof in Staplers Road, blocking the route for a number of hours. A 29-year-old man from Wootton was arrested on suspicion of causing injury by dangerous driving and driving whilst unfit through drugs, and was also taken to hospital. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary is appealing for witnesses to the incident, which happened at about 3:30 p.m. It wants information or dashcam footage which could help the ongoing investigation. If you can help the police, call 101 and quote reference 44230 117 605. 20 Premier League venues in 24 hours. A team of football-mad youngsters from the Isle of Wight have visited all 20 Premier League grounds in just 24 hours, finishing at Bournemouth at 7:15 a.m. on Sunday, March the 26th. 6 boys who play junior football for island and mainland teams travelled more than 1,000 miles, accompanied by 3 adult leaders. They even lost an hour at Fulham when the clocks went forward. Their epic challenge started with a 7-hour drive on Friday to Newcastle. Then on Saturday they stopped for their first photo at St James Park, the home of Newcastle United. They headed south through Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Nottingham, Leicester, Birmingham and London. They hit Arsenal dead on midnight. From there it was on to the south coast by way of Brighton, Hove Albion, Saints and the Cherries. It is not too late to donate to Mountbatten, for whom the tour was made.
Memories. The evacuation of over 330,000 British and Allied troops from Dunkirk from May the 25th until June the 4th, 1940, is regarded as a Second World War triumph over adversity. Prime Minister Winston Churchill romanced Britain's withdrawal from France by the little ships of England that came to the rescue of thousands. 2 weeks later, a tragic disaster took place that Churchill shamefully tried to cover up and is all but forgotten today. On June the 10th, Paris fell to advancing German forces. An exodus of hundreds of thousands of refugees fled France's capital. Among them were British civilians, Belgian nuns, mothers, children, plus thousands of British soldiers and airmen still in France. They were all forced to rush south to Saint-Nazaire, Brittany. The frantic mayhem of that arduous trek on foot, by rail, cars and lorries was made more dangerous by frequent strafing from German aircraft. Those who reached Saint-Nazaire by June the 16th waited to be rescued by a flotilla of British Navy trawlers and the Cunard liner Lancastria. Among them were a group of Isle of Wight soldiers of British Army Service Corps. Among them were Alfred Walter Cause, George Ward Penny and Ernest Arthur Derbyshire. To their great relief, they boarded the overcrowded liner on June the 17th. Penny went below decks to get warm. Derbyshire stayed on the upper deck to avoid the thousands massed below. The liner's Captain Sharp continued to board more human cargo as nearby rescue ships were bombed. Official records state 5,400 were on Lancastria. Unofficially, estimates vary. Anecdotally, the passenger counter gadget stopped at its upper limit. Therefore, hundreds more boarded. Cause was one of the last to embark and stayed on deck. Tragedy struck when German aircraft hit Lancastria with 3 bombs. One hit the engine room and exploded. Seawater instantly flooded in and oil stained the sea. Attempts were made to launch lifeboats filled with women and children. Thousands of men ditched into the sea. The aircraft strafed the oiled sea and set it alight. Derbyshire dived in from the deck and swam around for hours until he was saved from the fouled burning waves. The great liner sank in 20 minutes with thousands trapped inside.
George Penny was never seen again. Cause had jumped overboard and swam away. He was in the water for many hours and ingested oily brine. Eventually, a Spanish fishing boat rescued him. He was transferred to a British Navy vessel and landed in Plymouth, where he was hospitalised. Churchill was informed the day after Lancaster struck. He immediately imposed a D-notice to keep it secret until 2040. This gagged the British press. Survivors were sworn to secrecy. However, he failed to silence everyone. Lancastria's survivor was an American journalist who fled Paris on June the 10th. His New York Sun report 1 month later was wired to Britain. MPs demanded answers in Parliament. Churchill could no longer contain Fleet Street editors. British newspapers, including the county press, began to print survivors' stories, including Alfred Cole's safe arrival home. Years later, Alf attributed his survival to his strong swimming, but he never recovered full health. Mentally, the disaster was almost too difficult to recall. On one rare occasion, he told his family they claimed there were 6,000 on board, more like 9,000. After the war, he established himself as a well-known local artist and art teacher. His artistic flair ranged from pen and ink sketches of the island pubs to modern art. His work is proudly shared by his family, Jennifer and Butch Butchers, with county press readers. No accurate account of Lancaster casualties exists. George Penny is officially listed among those who died. He's remembered in Yarmouth War Memorial and Southern Vector's Second World War Memorial plaque. He also listed in Stephen Wynn's book, The Lancaster Tragedy, Sinking and Cover-Up, as Lance Corporal T. 63441 George Ernest Ward Penny. Ernest Derbyshire, who was injured, had a metal plate in his head. After the war, he ran the London pub, Wells Street Ride, for many years. He told Penny's brother Jim what happened to George. Mike Penny recalls his Uncle George joined Southern Vectors as a driver at the start of the war. Soon after, he was conscripted into the army. The HMT Lancaster Association exists today to remember the British forces who perished. Robert Miller, secretary, said Alfred Calls wasn't on the survivors list. He is now. The Great Line is officially a war grave, and there's a memorial in St. Saint-Nazaire. If your ancestor was on Lancaster, be in touch with the editor at isleofwhitecountypress.co.uk.
When's too soon for making light? A baby dressed in a pirate costume is acceptable in today's society. If you've been a child or raised a child on the Isle of Wight, I'll wager that you've had a great day out at Buffalo Creek Cowboy Town or Smugglerland at Blackgang Chine. If not, you've enjoyed a leisurely round of Pirates and Smugglers mini-golf on Shanklin Esplanade or somewhere similar. More wholesome fun would be hard to imagine. It's interesting to consider where these things come from. The conflict between white settlers and Native Americans, or each other, was long, bloody and ignoble. The world of 18th century maritime piracy is mixed with the romantic notion of smuggling here on the island and elsewhere. This trope is now so firmly embedded in childhood fantasy play that one can buy cuddly pirate toys, and TV shows about pirates are aimed at the young. Many of Enid Blyton's seminal adventure stories for children focused on smuggling, and there are even reenactors who make a living from emulating pirates. The notions of smuggling and piracy have come a long way from the bloodthirsty and brutal reality that history tells us they would have been. Despite this, there are limits to what is decorous. I am confident nobody will be setting up a Russians and Ukrainians theme park. Some years ago, there was an outcry when a Japanese company launched a Titanic-shaped inflatable slide, allowing kids to slide down the decks of the doomed liner. So the question presents itself, how soon is it too soon when it comes to suitable topics? Perhaps within living memory is a sensible criterion. After all, few people alive have experienced piracy on the high seas or fought in the Wild West. And we can now be sure that the number of living people who sailed on the Titanic is 0, so perhaps that's acceptable today. Smuggling, by contrast, is still something that goes on all over the world, and it is not the romantic type of fictionalized drama typified by the novels Jamaica Inn or Moonfleet. Even here on the Isle of Wight, we have our own modern-day smugglers. Few can be unaware of the case of island-based fishermen who were sentenced to a total of 104 years imprisonment in 2011 for drug smuggling. The rights and wrongs of the case are not for me to say, but the interesting thing is how the tale seems to have taken leave of the within living memory rule and moved beyond campaigning to become fair game for entertainment. Podcasts, videos, a play and more have been created. Recently, even convicted smuggler Jamie Green himself, alleged to be ringleader of the smuggling gang, appeared on stage at the Key Arts after an Arts Council-funded production based on his story. Maybe the current interest in true crime as a genre of entertainment is shortening the time needed before we can pick over the past for our present-day amusement. Smuggling is still a serious matter, but as we browse for entertainment, let's not forget the realities behind the stories we are offered.
And now we move on to public information. Why I'm backing tough immigration stance by Bob Seeley, the Isle of Wight's MP. This month I've been backing the Conservative government's illegal immigration bill. The law will deter illegal entry into the UK, save lives by breaking the people smugglers' business model, and remove people with no right to remain in the country. It will also set an annual cap on those admitted to the UK for resettlement. This law is needed. The overwhelming majority of Britons back it, yet it is being opposed by Labour as well as the Lib Dems and other fringe parties and left-wing lawyers. It is important to know the facts when dealing with this sensitive issue, as much of the information put out by our opponents is false. Fact: since 2015 the UK has taken in 400,000 refugees. That is not people who settle here for work. That's not the number of illegal refugees. That's just legal refugees. It's more than twice the population of the city of Portsmouth. To say we don't take in people or play our fair share is false. How many hundreds of thousands or millions more do our opponents want us to take? Fact: there are currently 9 safe and legal routes for refugees to come into this country. 2 for Afghanistan, 2 for Ukraine, 1 for Hong Kong. There are 4 general safe and legal routes when our opponents claim there are no safe and legal routes. They are not telling the truth. Fact: our system asylum is exploited by people falsely claiming to be victims of modern slavery. Of the largest single group, young Albanian men, 90% on arrival, claim to be the victim of trafficking. In reality, almost none are. Albania is a safe, although poor country. The abuse of our modern slavery laws prevent us from focusing on women trafficked for sexual exploitation. This proposed new law is part of a series of measures. We have doubled funding for the National Crime Agency to tackle people smuggling. We have signed a deal with the Albanian government to return illegal arrivals coming from that nation. We've also signed similar deals with Georgia, Nigeria, India, Pakistan, Serbia, Rwanda, as well as multi-year agreement with France to increase the number of patrols on beaches across the Channel. International migration is a major issue. Tens of millions of people are on the move throughout the world. We need to be sensitive and understanding, but we also need to protect our borders.
What's on? Ticket to Ride is set to return across spring and summer. Ride Esplanade's Eastern Gardens will once again play host to Jack Up events free to attend Ticket to Ride as it returns for its 9th year across the bank holiday weekends through spring and summer. Live music, provided by some island bands and artists, will kick off from lunchtime on Friday, April the 7th, with the event running until 8 p.m. each evening. Enjoy the sounds of Now Only, Beth and John, Momentary High, Amelia, The Pact, High School Never Ends, Soul Queen, Steve Loves Island Songs, Izzy Russell and more. Trade stores open from 10 a.m. each morning, and Jack Up's charity of the year is the MS Society Isle of Wight. There will be an Island Ales Real Ale Bar, food by island caterers, as well as homemade treats, artisan coffees and speciality teas. The event boasts a range of traditional market stalls, hand-drawn caricatures, tarot card reading and henna tattoos, with a range of activities to keep children entertained. Sarah Moss, organisers, said Ticket to Ride has a great reputation for being a feel-good event with a lovely atmosphere and laid-back, family-friendly vibes. Come and celebrate the start of the new season and chill out along the seafront with us.
St John's Church Choir and Friends sing Olivet to Calvary. At 7 p.m, a Good Friday performance at St John's Church, St John's Road, Newport. More information, ring 01983 821 961. A Wonderful Evening of Intrigue and Fun by Felicity Thompson. At our lovely Apollo Theatre, going to a play which is superbly written and acted so well is a real delight. When We Are Married, set in Yorkshire, was written by J.B. Priestley when he was living here on the Isle of Wight. What inspiration the Isle of Wight must have given him, because his play, first performed in 1938 in London's West End, is considered one of his best. The maid is talking to the new young church organist about the party in the next room. Enter 3 well-off couples, all married on the same day, in the same chapel, by the same vicar, gathered to celebrate their silver wedding anniversary, even if the years obviously haven't been easy. But what if this organist, none of them likes, produces a letter to show that marriage ceremony wasn't legal? What? Not married? All 3 couples react with horror. The tipsy local photographer is coming, and the local newspaper reporter. What if the maid and the cook, who overheard too, tell everybody? Wrecked reputations, being the local laughingstock, one couple after another realises what trouble will come. There are moments of revaluation all round and the need for a very large glass of something. The play runs until April the 1st. If you can go and see it, you will have a wonderful evening of intrigue and fun.
Letters. Hey Big Spender from Marion Rumans, Bembridge. Today I received a letter from the Pension Service regarding my state pension, which has risen slightly as I'm in the category of the oldies. It has made me extremely angry, which is very bad for my blood pressure. The age addition is 25p per week, therefore £1 per month. This dates from 1971, when Prime Minister Edward Heath declared that pensioners would receive an extra 25 pence. That is 52 years ago. I was in my 30s. This amount has not risen in 52 years. It is disgusting and an insult to us. Editor's footnote. The basic state pension has risen by 10.1%.
Little Spark in Channel 5 Show by Bob Barton from Chandler's Ford. It will be good to know what the rationale behind the Channel 5 series on the island. Perhaps Alan Titchmarsh can film us viewers in. If the intention was to present it as a duel, it completely lost me, and that's the politest comment I can make about it. Of sparkle there was little. I'm only surprised Mr. Titchmarsh was prepared to put his name to what to me was a travesty. Anyone watching it, particularly those who did not previously know the island, must have been mystified by the subject matter, much of which varied from the seriously niche to the plain bizarre. I hadn't wished to be critical of any part of the subjects presented, but as a born islander, I was left with not only the feeling of a missed opportunity, but plain bewilderment at the overall misrepresentation of its many assets. I would dearly love to hear an explanation from Mr. Titchmarsh, who clearly himself loves the island, and would surely not wish it to be presented in such a strange, if not curious, light.
Sewage solutions not enough from Paul Knocker, Bembridge. The report by Oliver Dyer, County Press, 17th of March 23, on the Southern Water event in Newport was both revealing and of great concern. Katie Taylor admitted that dealing with the storm's sewage discharges is going to take a lot of time. The article records the current government targets. Storm overflows should have no more than 10 spills on average per year by 2050. This is just not good enough. The UK water companies were privatised in 1989, regulated by the Water Industry Act 1991, so they have had over 30 years to improve the infrastructure to stop the leaks. In 2020 across the country, this was losing 3 billion litres of water every day and having to deal with the problem of combined sewers, which cause the untreated sewage discharges after a rainstorm. I hardly think offering free water butts is a serious solution. Ofwat is the regulator and should be held to account for the failure of the water companies to ensure water security, including new reservoirs, and deal with pollution of our rivers and the sea. Southern Water provides services to over 4 million customers in Kent, Sussex, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Last year it was ranked as the poorest performer compared to other water companies and was fined £90 million for illegally dumping sewage. The company is owned by Green Sands Holdings, a consortium of international infrastructure investors. The CEO in 2021 to 2022 was Mr. Macaulay, whose salary and bonus for that year totalled £1,082,000. In the same paper, Louise Hill takes a fresh look at the proposed Penny Feathers development of 900 new homes in Ryde. No doubt the Isle of Wight Planning Department have given due consideration to this increase in demand for water, sewage management and other essential services.
M. Battersby of Freshwater writes, "Are we guinea pig fodder?" So there we have it, revealed in your lead story last week. Is new plan just what the doctor ordered? Having driven Isle of Wight GP services into the ground, rather than the marriage with Portsmouth National Health Trust, the resulting in top consultants visiting the island to treat island patients, we're going to get third-year medical students coming across to practice on elderly patients. In short, we are seen as a ready supply of guinea pig fodder because, let's be honest, islanders from a mainland perspective are bottom of the ladder and don't really matter when it comes to providing experienced, high-quality medical care. Hardly a prospect to relish.
Support new ferry firm from Terry Chivers in Sandown. We now learn that we are to have a new foot passenger ferry from Yarmouth to the mainland. Let's hope it's a success if it forces down fares. What happened to the Portsmouth Cows Link recently promised? I cast my mind back to Cows Express, who offered cheaper fares. Then both Red Funnel and Wight Link slashed fares. Once Cows Express was out of business, their sky-high fares were soon to return. Let's hope if a new service with lower fares is launched, people support it, whatever Red Funnel and Wight Link say and do.
Customer care is lacking, by Janie Feeks of Brading. I was manager of a busy Cranks Cafe takeaway in Soho, London, some years ago. I prided myself on our customer care. Always greet the customer with a smile. How may I help you? Even if busy making a fresh pot of coffee or whatever, turn and make eye contact, smile and tell them you'll be with them soon. I returned to the island in 2008 and since then I have accumulated a list of venues I will not visit because of the appalling service. Since some are big, well-known cafes, restaurants, the staff will not make eye contact, often ignoring me as they don't really want to serve me. And, heaven forbid, if I interrupt them when they are scrolling on their phone, and they never smile, it's almost as if they don't really want to be there. I also had utilisation of staff. I was at a venue just this morning and there was one girl in the counter. I was in a big queue and she was taking the order, then going off to make the coffee, then taking the money. But in the back it was easy to see several women wandering around, washing up, chatting, giggling, not giving a hoot about the customers. If this happened at Cranks, usually at lunchtime, I redeployed backroom staff to the counter until the queue were all served and then they could go back to their washing up or restocking the counter. Come on, cafe restaurants, do some customer training. After all, without its customers, you won't have a successful business. And that's all we've time for. So it's goodbye from Terry.
And goodbye from Francis. BBC In Touch programme follows.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. We've set ourselves a tough question this week. Is it harder or easier to be blind in today's world? It's a tough question because it depends on so many variables. How old you are, how much or how little you can see, whether you have a job, how well you cope with technology, whether you find change an exciting challenge or a constant irritant. So, if it is so tough, why are we asking it? Well, partly so that we can draw attention to the things that are good and suggest ways of improving what people say is bad. And partly because you, our listeners, are asking us. It's cropping up increasingly in items we cover, your emails, in conversations we're having with a range of visually impaired people. Here are just some of the things you've been telling us.
My 92-year-old mother-in-law has done brilliantly with some technology. She uses a speaking microwave and watch, and for the past few years, a smart speaker. She's never in her life used a computer keyboard or even a typewriter keyboard. But with the smart speaker, she can ask it questions about history, how to spell words, and where certain shops are. She has no idea that she's actually browsing the internet.
That from Jill Kay. And by way of contrast, this from 24-year-old Angelique.
I'm really worried about the society we're living in. It makes me feel as though I was born into the wrong generation. It's almost impossible to do anything without being asked to go online, whether it be applying for jobs or leaving the country. I think this digital obsession in technology has gone too far.
And there'll be more of your views throughout the programme. But a strong suggestion there that this is not just about older people resisting change and younger people embracing it. While technology is a crucial element in this programme, it's as much about how society has decided to use it as it is about the things it's enabled us to do which we couldn't do before. We've invited along a group of 3 people who span the generations, have done or do a varied range of jobs and who have a widespread of views. Matt Johnson specialises in IT and data law. Roshni Hafiz is a VAT specialist with HMRC, and Mike Lambert was a lecturer in further education and a disability coordinator. Just to put some flesh on the bones of this debate, I'd like to start by asking you all to pick one thing which makes your life much easier now and one that makes it harder. Mike Lambert, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think computers and technology make it easier in the way that, for example, I can walk around now with a dozen books on a device in my pocket. I can do emails, I can do internet research, and all these things were not possible earlier in my life. What makes it difficult? I come back to computers. I think the number of flat screens at checkouts that have now been computerised in ways that really challenge my access.
OK, so computers good, computers bad, basically. Roshni, what about you?
Well, in some ways, seconding some of the things that Mike said there. So I would definitely say that screen readers on computers have been a massive game changer in terms of how the technology has advanced in my lifetime and the doors that has opened to leisure, education and training. In terms of the negative, undoubtedly touchscreens.
OK, Matt.
I would say one thing that has been particularly helpful in terms of accessibility is the increased ubiquity of home working. You're not dealing with 8 a.m. commuters on the tube or the bus line or struggling with the 5:30 p.m. pub crowd.
And the thing you hate most or which has done least to help you?
I'm going to have to agree with Roshni here. I'm going to have to say it is touchscreens. I don't necessarily understand why everything from toasters to banks of lifts need to be touchscreen accessible, but it is genuinely the thing that causes me the most concern in terms of how blind people interface with the world around them.
Right. Just in day-to-day things, Mike, I mean, one of the things I noticed you said when we asked you about things like this is you've practically given up dealing with money.
Yeah, not because I've gone into a cashless situation, I might add. I mean, most of my life, I did banking myself. I would go into a branch, speak to a person, take money out. I got braille statements that I could check. And by slow steps, started with the closure of bank branches and some of my own hesitancy about using machines. It's evolved into a situation now where my wife does all the banking and just hands me lumps of cash. So I've kind of...
I wish my wife would hand me lumps of cash, but still go on.
It's my money. Yeah, I've virtually checked out of doing my own banking. I think there's an element of just not following the chase, of feeling a situation accelerating away from me and having enough other things to deal with.
OK, well, look, just to concentrate on banks for a moment, there is surely no doubt that bank policies over the past decade has definitely favoured the technologically sophisticated. Time was, as Mike said, when you could visit your local bank, talk to your bank manager, probably somebody you knew quite well, but not anymore. Over the past decade, most UK banks have closed large numbers of their branches, according to recent figures from Consumer Protection Company, which banks and building societies have closed or scheduled for closure nearly 5,500 of them. They cite Barclays as the biggest individual bank to close most of them, just over 1,000 by the end of 2023. HSBC is leading the pack of closures this year, with another 114 scheduled. We did invite a number of banks to take part in this discussion. They all either didn't reply or declined our invitation. So to discuss some of these issues, we're joined by Andy Donald, who is Director of Communications and Public Affairs at UK Finance, which represents the banking industry. Andy, first of all, we know there are some sophisticated ways of helping tech-savvy, visually impaired customers. But the overall effect of some of these changes is surely depersonalisation, you know, the absence of someone trustworthy and helpful to talk to. That's unarguable, isn't it?
I think what's happened is that the way people interact with the bank has definitely changed over time. And you're right, there are fewer branches than there were before and more people are doing online banking. But I mean, at its heart, banking is a customer service business. Banks do want to help. What I've discovered since speaking to our members is that they don't always know a customer's individual circumstances. And so it's really helpful if people can get in touch with their bank, explain what their particular needs are.
But talking to your bank, Andy, is not that easy. I mean, some big banks are indeed operating their telephone services, but certainly on mine, which is HSBC, they spend a lot of time telling me how I'd be much better off banking online before going on to tell me that as there is a great deal of demand for their services, there'll be a long wait before leaving me for what seems like hours to listen to some dreary and badly recorded music. Wouldn't it be more honest to say, because we're not employing enough people as agents, you'll have to wait a long time?
I can understand that it's frustrating getting through to a call centre. You're right, it can be often the case that you get an easier route in through, for example, the internet or mobile banking app. Some offer a video call function, that can be one option. Another thing to consider is that call centres are sometimes busier during the morning, so it may be that calling at a different time of day allows you to get through a little bit quicker.
But it's not easy, is it? You must admit, there's a lot of frustration attached compared to popping into your high street branch, which probably wasn't very far from where you lived, and talking to someone.
And there are still a large number of high street branches. Whilst you're right that there are fewer than there were, there's still several thousand of them around the country. So that's still an option for a lot of people. The other thing you can do is go into the local post office. There's about 11,500 of them around the country, and do a lot of your local day-to-day banking.
Right. I'm just wondering, out of Mike and Roshni and Matt, is there your opportunity to put any question to Andy? I mean, Mike, you may well, as you've given up banking altogether.
Well, I'll just say that the way Andy's describing it is a little bit departs from my reality. When I moved to this house 15 years ago, there were 5 banks on the high street. There's now none.
In terms of bank branches, what's happened over recent years is that fewer people are using them, and that does lead to some difficult decisions for all the firms in terms of closing them. The other thing that is starting to happen, although it's only in small numbers at this stage, is the banks coming together and opening up a shared banking hub whereby they pool their resources into one particular location, and then you can come in and do your banking face-to-face that way.
I mean, do you know if the banks have any idea how many of their visually impaired customers won't find it easy to bank online or use an app?
They wouldn't necessarily have those figures unless people are in touch with them. There was some interesting research I read by Experian, which found that about 85% of people with support needs hadn't actually got in touch with their bank or building society. If people are able to get in touch, discuss the options available, and that will vary between different banks, but that'd be really important in terms of understanding what people are asking for and possibly what services can be improved or enhanced.
I think that's really trying to shift the responsibility onto vulnerable customers, that we should make our opinions clear. So I think it's a bit disingenuous to say that we need to let you know.
Just before I give Andy a final chance to answer that, Roshni or Matt, anything you want to put to Andy Donald?
Yeah, you mentioned their Experian-related research. The banks didn't know what was needed. Even if you get through to someone and you say, hey, look, I need accessibility improvements in X, Y, and Z, unfortunately, the person you get through to at a call centre is unlikely to have the necessary training or knowledge to get there. So is there a scheme across banks that is going to improve things? If you want to hear from us, how easy are you going to make it?
I hear both those points, and I certainly didn't mean to come across as disingenuous, because I understand the point that's been making about being asked to contact your bank. As to whether work is going on creating a system that allows people to get in touch, there is a pilot scheme going on at the moment with a number of firms, that's not just banks, in terms of trying to put in place a system that will allow people to effectively notify the system, which would then disseminate it out to various institutions.
OK. Andy Donald, thank you very much for coming on to Face the Music. Thank you. And we stay on the whole issue of personalisation, because on the issue of trains, sadly, the Rail Delivery Group were coming on to Face the Music, but they withdrew when they discovered we wanted to ask them about the controversy over whether to continue with manned ticketing offices at stations. We also asked the Department for Transport if somebody would come on to talk about this. They said no minister was available. But it's something our listeners do care about. Janice Mitchell told us.
I don't have a ticket office at my local station. It's all automatic computer screens, and most of the time they're broken. I often can't use it anyway because it's a touchscreen. I often just get on the train and hope a conductor will come along, or I'll buy a ticket when I arrive.
Back to touchscreens again. Well, to find out what the thinking is about ticket sales and other access issues on our trains, we turned instead to Tony Miles of the magazine Modern Railways. Tony, why is this issue of ticket sales such a sticking point?
It does appear, certainly from the government's point of view, that getting people off trains and off stations is an easy fix in terms of saving money because the industry's costing it too much. I understand why people are concerned, because certainly the fears are that there is a political will to destaff stations, despite the fact that the last piece of research done of people that needed accessibility support, 44% of people across a range of people needing support said we need more staff at stations, and 38% said we need more people on trains. So, that's the feedback, but it doesn't necessarily trigger any kind of reaction in the Palace of Westminster, as it were.
I have to say my bugbear on the railways is the hit and miss nature of the services that are meant to help us. The delivery of announcements on the trains had improved enormously since the various crises on the railways, COVID, slump in usage, industrial problems. You can't rely on them anymore, or I find you can't. I don't understand why, for instance, quite often you don't have announcements now. They don't tell you which side of the train to get at, all that kind of stuff. You aren't here to speak for the railways, but do you know why that should be?
I've been trying to look through all the reviews and all the rules and stuff, and apart from the fact that nearly all the disability regulations focus on people in wheelchairs and people who need assistance to get up big steps, very little mention of people with visual impairments anyway, that there are no straight guidelines for what should be announced and what not. There are things like you must announce the next station and so on, but there's no guideline that says, and how about telling people which side of the train the platform will be? Really simple stuff, which they can do on the tube. The next stop is on the left. But why can't they do it on a national rail train? It's because there isn't a rule that says they have to. There seems to be a trend at the moment for the lowest you can get away with. If it doesn't say we have to, then we probably won't.
Right. I just want to bring in our guest while we've got Tony here, because one of the things that's fair to say is the assistance can work very well. I don't know how many of you through regularly used trains, but what's your experience been?
The lack of staff in stations is definitely a concern. I have to travel a lot with work and often come back at quite unsocial hours, and walking through a station in not the best part of town, as a Muslim female wearing a headscarf using a white cane, you do feel incredibly vulnerable. I've raised this with staff at my local station, because my local station is only manned between 6:30 in the morning and 2:30 in the afternoon. So presumably all blind people are going to want to do what they have to do between those hours because they don't work or do anything else. I have raised the issue, and the advice I was given was to stay within visibility of the cameras, because of course you know where they are if you can't see anything, so that you're safe.
Tony, have you got anything optimistic you can tell us?
There are some good things. There have been some great things like tactile displays that help you work out the whole plan of a station that have been tested and approved, and awards have been given.
But then you
for
get to the station and there's no one to help you.
Well, you've got to know where that tactile thing is. And yeah, the tactile edges are just fascinating. I was on a station the other day where the PA apologised for the lack of tactile edges as I was poking my feet around the new tactile edges that were there. So it's that the road is paved with good intent, but it probably needs a few more people to get out there and actually walk the walk.
Tony Miles, thank you very much indeed for coming on. We're nearing the end, and I want to ask all three of you if you could suggest one thing to improve the situation and maintain what's good while improving what's bad. You know, what would you suggest?
There needs to be categorical legislative reform with respect to the minimum standards that technology needs to meet in terms of accessibility. There need to be requirements that are imposed on large tech manufacturers, and there need to be fines for non-compliance. That's the only thing that is going to ensure a more equal playing field than we have.
Right. I think I had a growl of assent from Mike on the idea of legislation. So apart from agreeing with Matt, anything else?
No, that was the first thing that occurred to me. I just feel that we have the 2010 legislation, and the United Nations Convention have inspected this country and said that, you know, there just aren't enough cases being brought, and therefore nothing's enforced. And things can go on like what the guy was saying about the railways, that people just sort of don't care. I don't really have to try.
Okay. Roshni, I'm going to take the liberty of steering you. I mean, by all means, say whatever was in your head. But one of the things I think you told us when we were setting this up was, where on earth do people get training to cope with computers and technology?
Yeah, that is very nuanced, because it's imperative that rehab staff, etc., are equipped with the skills, because it's no longer about how to use a liquid level indicator or basic white cane skills. It's actually how to interface with touchscreens on your iPhone and how to configure JAWS to meet your needs on your laptop. So I think while that wouldn't solve a lot of the external infrastructure problems, it would definitely go a long, long way to making sure that people have improved access to the built and technological environment, thus giving them the ability to advocate more strongly for themselves and the changes they want to see.
Right. Loads of ideas there. I wish we had an hour for this, because you've come up with so many things, and we've also had guests who've done the same, but we don't have an hour yet. Mike Lambert, Roshni Hafiz, Matt Johnson, thank you all very much indeed for steering us through this complicated subject. There are many other areas we just didn't have time to cover, and so we'd like you, our listeners, to continue to add to the debate. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can leave a voice message on 0161 836 1338, and you can go to our website bbc.co.uk/in touch. That's it from me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings, our guests, and studio manager Sue Stone Street. Goodbye.
Good morning. This is the Scaffolding and Skip News, week commencing the 3rd of April 2023. Newport area, Co-op, Pyle Street. Halifax, 116 High Street. Thompson's Restaurant, South Street. Game, 29 St James Street. 11 St James Street and Lugley Street, 62 Castlehold Lane, 63 Empire Barbers, Pyle Street, 29B Lugley Street, 64 to 65 Pyle Street. Skip News, Newport area, 84 to 85 High Street.
Ryde area, 71 High Street, 67 High Street, 36 Castle Street, Wetherspoons, 41 to 43 Union Street, 7A Esplanade, 99 George Street, 55 Warwick Street.
Skips, Cowes area, 6 Albert Road, Gurnard.
Totland area, Totland Post Office, the Broadway.
Sandown area, 85 High Street.
Shanklin area, the Esplanade, 67 High Street and 37 High Street.